Hi guys, welcome back to Music Theory. I wanted to let you know that since the end of the lockdown, my gigs and audio work have been picking up, so I'll probably only be posting about every 2 weeks or so. I've really enjoyed making these as well as your comments, but it takes just under 3 days for me to develop a script, record it, create examples, and edit the video and audio, and like you, I gotta make money, so the music work has to take precedence. So anyway, enough about that. In today's episode, we're going to define what the word genre means, and we'll discuss the first half of what I call the context principle. Here we go. So what is genre and how is it defined? Merriam-Webster defines genre as a category of artistic, musical, or literary composition characterized by a particular style, form, or content. Personally, I find this definition a little incomplete, and so I will define genre here as the style of music which, in turn, is also defined and influenced by culture and time period. Perhaps the best way to start a discussion on genre is by asking you a few questions. Would you wear sneakers to a formal wedding? How about a tuxedo to a rock concert? Of course, you could wear sneakers to a formal wedding or a tuxedo to a rock concert, but would it be appropriate? This is at the heart of what the phrase genre appropriate means. Bear with me for a minute if you would now, because there's actually a point to all this. In my career, I've been very fortunate to have been exposed to an extremely diverse palette of music genres, including starting out as a rock vocalist, becoming a jazz bassist, a studio musician playing multiple genres of music, and a touring musician. I also write orchestral music. I only mention this because being exposed to a wide variety of music genres has made me aware of how important knowing the specific harmonic, melodic, and rhythmic devices of each of the various genres are. It can literally make a difference between getting a specific job or not. And even though I started as a rocker, I'm a self-confessed harmony, melody, rhythm, and genre nerd. I love learning about what makes a genre sound a certain way. But I tend to study genres now from more of a jazz or modern symphonic approach because, like a jazz musician, I think in terms of all the possible chord extensions and note choice possibilities rather than something simpler, like triads, for example. This is because I'd rather know something and not need it than need something and not know it. And this includes all the possible harmonic, melodic, and improvisatory note choices. In respect to genres, what I've learned is that it's literally as much about what to leave out as it is what to include. For example, even though a major scale is possible in a pop song, a better choice would probably be the pentatonic scale. It's important to learn what's common and accepted in the genre you like to not only know what's expected as a musician, but also to know the boundaries of that genre. Even if you intend to break those boundaries, it's still in your best interest to learn where the expected boundary lines are first. What to leave out and what to leave in is solely dictated by genre. So again, if you want to learn a particular style of music, you must do a lot of active listening and analysis to determine what's included in that genre as well as what's left out. Remember, just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do something. I should mention here that to cover all of the harmonic, melodic, improvisatory, or rhythmic devices possible in each genre is beyond the scope of this episode. However, we may talk about general principles in subsequent episodes. The context principle is another principle I came up with for a lack of finding it in the theory literature. It comes in two parts. 1. Harmonic, melodic, improvisatory, and rhythmic choices are limited or expanded depending on the genre. Instrumentation is also dependent on the genre. As stated earlier, although a major scale is a possible source for a melody in a pop song, a better choice might be the major pentatonic scale, which drops the 4th and 7th degree of the major scale. This is an example of the first half of the context principle, namely that the boundaries of the genre determines what sounds correct. Although it's possible to use the major scale as source material for a pop melody, and in fact, certain genres of pop music do use the major scale as melodic source material, in certain genres of pop music, the major pentatonic is the first choice, and perhaps the only choice. This is an example of knowing the notes that are possible, but also knowing what notes are appropriate to leave out. What about harmony? In Music Mechanics 28, we learn that pop and early classical music's fundamental chord structure is the triad, while jazz music's fundamental chord structure is the 7th chord. This means that using 7th chords in certain genres of pop music will sound just as bad as using triads in certain genres of jazz. In other words, your harmonic choices are either limited or expanded depending on the genre. How about improvisation? As we learned from my compatibility principle in Music Mechanics 32, chords with the fewest chord factors, such as the triads in pop music, have the most scale and mode choices available for melody or improvising. However, these choices are further limited to a hierarchy of the most used scales to the least used to never used scales depending on genre, which is again style, culture, and time period. To illustrate this, let's look at a power chord. For the guitarist watching, which scales would you use to improvise over a power chord? The minor pentatonic scale might be a typical choice. What chord factors are in a power chord? Simply put, it's a dyad with a root and a perfect fifth doubled in various octaves. Now, listen to this example, which also uses a dyad to improvise over. This is an entirely different scale than the minor pentatonic. In fact, using the minor pentatonic in this genre may actually sound wrong. What this illustrates is that more than one scale is possible over dyad, which is the compatibility principle, and scale choices are dependent on the style of music, rock music versus Indian classical music, the culture of a region, namely the artistic cultures of the United States or India respectively, and the time period. In other words, the genre of music dictates the correct scales to play. Genres of music are culturally based, and different music sounds good to different people from different cultures. It is also dictated by time period. For example, regarding rock music, think of the types of scales and chords used by Elvis Presley, and then fast forward to Audioslave. In jazz, you can think of the differences in the types of scales and chords used by Louis Armstrong as opposed to Allan Holdsworth. In classical music, think of the differences in the types of scales and chords used by Mozart as opposed to Stravinsky. In our example, as far as the broad overarching genre of Indian music, what I just played might be construed as an example of older Indian classical music styles, while current Indian pop music might embrace rock harmonies and rhythms from the United States or Europe. Additionally, notice the genre determines the instrumentation. Sitars and tablas in rock music are extremely rare. Even the audio processing of the instruments is different. When was the last time you heard a stomp pedal used on a sitar? All of these examples demonstrate the first half of the context principle. We'll cover the second half of the context principle in the next episode. See you then. Hey, thanks for watching the video. Be sure to like and leave a comment below if you have any questions. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button. If you like the music you've been listening to, these tracks are from my standard Deviation album and can be purchased at this link.